Hi everyone. This is the Mind Over Matter podcast, and today we have Serena Bela Mehta. She is 19 years old and goes to Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, where she studies international studies and political science. Some of her hobbies include playing volleyball, classical Indian dance, and spending time with her family and friends. So here she is.
Hi everyone. It's nice to, hear you or talk to you. Thank you for having me on this podcast. I'm really excited.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll begin with asking the questions now. So at your high school or your first year of undergrad, have you seen people struggle around you with mental health at university?
Yeah, I have, for sure. I think mental health is a topic that is starting to become more discussed, and I think it definitely needs to be talked about more, and there needs to be less of a stigma around it because it is so important. And so I did see a lot of that in high school. I think I saw a little bit less of it just because those who I was surrounded by, I thought, for myself and for others, that we had our mental health in check. We were okay, but I know a lot of friends that did struggle with a lot of different mental health situations, stuff like that in high school. And in the high school that I went to, they had a lot of different clubs. Actually, one of the clubs was called Mind Over Matter, I believe, where they helped students. They just kind of gave students a space and an opportunity to kind of share how they were feeling and kind of figure out how to work alongside their mental health rather than kind of push it away. So I definitely did see a lot of students in my high school struggle with that, and then especially during my undergrad, my first year at my school I was before, Northwestern, I was at Madison, and I did see a lot of students struggle with mental health. I think changing from going to high school to college, it's a huge transition, and it's really not easy at all, and so I think that's what contributes a little bit to realizing that your mental health might not be in a state where you want it to be, and so I did see a lot of friends struggle, but the nice thing is that my university, and actually every university in the States, and I'm sure every university internationally as well, has a lot of health programs to help students talk to students, give advice. They have therapists and therapy, so they have a lot of resources and mental health resources for students in undergrad, which was really nice. So that was good, yeah.
So they were able to get help for it?
Yes, they were. I mean, those who actively seek it out and want help, everything was at their fingertips. They had all the resources they wanted to get help, so it was nice to see them be able to help themselves, but also take in advice and learn how to kind of work hand in hand with their mental health, yeah.
That's good. Have you struggled with mental health?
Yeah, I definitely have. I think in high school, not so much. I think at least in my mind back then, I didn't think I struggled. I'm sure I did at some points, but I never recognized that as being a struggle with mental health. I just kind of was like, oh, I don't really know what it is. I'm struggling with something, but I couldn't identify it. But my first year of undergrad, I really, really struggled with mental health, and that's a hard thing to admit. No one really ever wants to say that they're having a hard time or that they're struggling in any way, but I definitely did. I think I didn't realize how big of a transition it is to go from living at home all the time and going to high school to going to undergrad, and I'm a very, very social person, so I never really had a problem making or finding friends, but I definitely did in my undergrad, and I think I didn't think that would be a problem, so I struggled with that. I just struggled a lot, and I'm not sure if I can pinpoint exactly what, but I had a lot of anxiety, I had a lot of stress, I definitely had panic attacks that I went through, a lot had to do with, I felt a really deep sense of loneliness in college, and I just felt very alone. I didn't know how to deal with it, and I didn't know how to seek help, and it was hard. I started talking to a therapist during one of my breaks, and that definitely helped, and that was really nice. It was a space for me to kind of open up. I wasn't able to talk to my therapist for so long because I had to go back to school, but I did struggle, and it was hard for me to admit that I was struggling, but once I did, I think it really helped me kind of figure out how to move forward. I journaled a lot. Oh my god, the amount of journals I have from school is insane. But it was hard. I will admit, I definitely struggled. Maybe some aspect of, like I mentioned, loneliness, just sadness, constant, just feeling down and tired and exhausted and not really sure how to deal with my emotions. And so it was hard, but I did deal with it a lot in my first year.
Mm-hmm. So you were able to get a proper outlet to get your you were able to basically get better?
Yeah, I think so. I think my mindset on it is no one ever perfects mental health, right? Mental health can never be perfect. But you find ways to make it better or to make yourself happier. And I did. I found that. It took me a very, very long time, but I figured it out. And I figured out what I needed to do because I realized I wasn't happy with something I was doing in my life. I couldn't pinpoint it, but I knew I wasn't happy and I knew I wasn't myself. And so I found a way to get out of that kind of rut and to figure out what I wanted to do to make myself happy. So I did get help. I think talking to a therapist, I think everyone I recommend does it at least once or tries it, because I think people are like, oh, I don't want to talk to a therapist, or, oh, there's such a stigma around it, but they're there to listen to you and to help you, and it really helped. I think just talking to someone who's an outsider in your life can give you such a new perspective on things you're missing or something you need to add to your life to make it better, or to help you kind of get out of the rut that you're in. So I did get help, and I think I was able to fix. I mean, I will by no means say that I fixed it completely or that I'm perfect. I still struggle sometimes. I think with this transitioning I'm doing from going to one university to another, I definitely struggle with imposter syndrome. I think a few different things, just scared for the future, and so I struggle in that aspect with my mental health, but it's getting better, and everyone has good days, everyone has bad days, so
yeah. So thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Have teachers in your university struggled with mental health?
Yeah, that's a great question. Of course, my professors at university probably wouldn't tell me directly if they've struggled with mental health. I wish they had. I think that would have been a really eye-opening experience to see someone who a lot of students look up to, who is a mentor, to see them kind of openly talk about it. That is huge. And I wish more teachers talked about it. I think I have had a few teachers or professors kind of in university who really highlight what they call mental health days. So they always say, like, if you are not feeling it today, if you are not 100% in it, take the day off. Take the day for yourself. And it doesn't mean go out and party and go like crazy on the town, but take the day for yourself. Take the time to figure out where you are struggling. Take the time to focus on yourself, look inward. So I think a lot of my professors did kind of highlight that importance of taking time to look out for yourself, because it's not just about physically if you're healthy, but there's also that mental health part of it. And so a lot of them highlighted that. I think they don't talk about it as much as I'd love for teachers to talk about it, but I think they did a fair job of it, and they do highlight it, which is good.
So teachers didn't openly tell you that they were down, but you observed it in their behavior.
Exactly. It's something, yes. I think I've learned after going through a little bit of a mental health rut that it's definitely something observable. You can tell when people are not themselves, right? You know someone for so long, and then you kind of see them maybe down or sadder than normal, and you're like, okay, maybe something's not right, something's off. Doesn't always mean something's wrong, but maybe they just need time for themselves, right? We all cherish alone time, and time to figure out what makes ourselves happy, because at the end of the day, you have to be happy, right? You can make everyone else happy, and that's what I was doing. I was making everyone else happy, but I forgot to make myself happy, and I forgot what makes me me and who I am. And so that was really important. And so I think noticing that in your professors, you definitely can. And some of them were open about talking about it, which is really nice, because I think when people talk about it more, there's less of a, oh, I don't want to tell anyone, I don't want to talk about how I'm feeling. So when professors are more open about it, I think it helps.
So when you see people sharing around you, you feel like sharing too?
Yeah, I mean, not always. I've had a lot of people share with me their mental health journeys, and I think I still am trying to figure out how to talk about my own journey, and so I'm not completely open about it yet. I'm not hiding it, but I think I'm finding a way to tell my story without it I guess, having like a negative impact on me, but being open about and sharing it. And like with these podcasts, I love getting to tell my story because I think everyone's story is different. But I think if you share what you're going through, it helps other people realize that it's not just a very finite thing that people experience. It happens over a lifetime, and people deal with it every single day. It's not something that just comes and goes, right? And so I think when people share, it helps a lot.
So that's, yeah. At a university, do you see people like body shaming plus size people or plus size people who are insecure about themselves? And have you seen that in your university?
That's a really good question. I've actually had no one ask me that before, so I think that's a great question. I'm trying to think. I think I have not openly seen that, which I'm thankful to say because no one wants to see that or hear that or experience that in any way. So I'm glad that I've never firsthand experienced anyone in that situation or being in that situation. But I think, sorry, I'm trying to gather my thoughts.
All right.
I have heard stories about it, but I think in today's day and age, there's such a huge movement around body positivity and just all of these things and accepting people for who they are, which, oh my gosh, should have been the norm years ago, right?
Yeah.
But I think because a lot of our generation, our society is moving towards that, I haven't personally seen a lot of body shaming in that way. But things like those struggling with bulimia or struggling with anorexia, like those things still exist, and that exists because of body shaming, right? And so obviously I have seen people I actually have a lot of close friends who have struggled with eating disorders like that and kind of things that have messed with their head because of being body shamed. And so I've definitely seen that. And because of that, it's clear that it still exists and it still happens. I think you don't see it as openly anymore, just because of the use of social media, right? Social media is such a huge role in all of these things, both positive but also negative. And so I think a lot of that might happen online where we don't necessarily see that. But once again, there are so many resources, like at my university, that kind of helped with that. So many clubs that had weekly meetings about body positivity and bringing in guest speakers to talk about it. So I think there are resources out there and clubs and people and mindsets and communities who care about attacking this like body shaming problem and kind of throwing it out the window and implementing this new idea of thought about accepting everybody as who they are. And so I'm glad that I've seen those clubs and experienced their passion for it and their excitement to do this for people. So that's been good.
All right. Last question.
Mm-hmm.
What tips would you give some incoming student to a university? What tips would you give them, like, to go by as they go through college to make their mental health better, or something they should avoid to not make themselves like completely down?
Yeah, that's a great question. My number one piece of advice is don't lose who you are. I think everyone is so unique in who they are. They have so many qualities that make them them. And don't lose sight of that, because in college it's so easy to get wrapped up. There's a million things coming at you when you first go to university, and you're like, oh my gosh, how do I handle all of this? And at some point you lose who you are as a person, and that, not for everybody, I'm just saying for some people, you lose who you are as a person and you have to find a way to get that back. And so my number one piece of advice, like I said, is just be true to yourself and don't lose yourself. But then also realize that it's probably going to happen, whether on a big scale or a small scale. At some point, you're probably going to struggle with some extent of mental health. And so to that, I say, keep an idea or a list of things in your head that you know that make you happy. And when you start to struggle with that, or you feel yourself kind of getting sad or down, go back to that list and figure out, what can I do that will get me back to who I really am as a person and who I am at my core. And paying attention to that, because we all have passions, we all have things we like to do, whether it's with people in social areas or by yourself alone, which is not bad, because a lot of the things that I like to do that get me back to who I am often by myself, whether it's reading a book or listening to music, or I love to just like spend time with my dog. And I know that gets me grounded and centered to who I am. And so keep an idea of those things that are important to you. And when you start feeling down or when you start feeling sad, move to going to that list and figuring out what you want to do to stay grounded in that area, and then just keep up with that. And then at the same time, like when it does come to that point where you are struggling or where you kind of are having problems, reach out to people. Do not be afraid to say something to someone, because people are going to give you amazing advice that you would have never expected. I think if I would have talked to someone earlier about how I was feeling, about my loneliness, like I think I could have gotten out of that sadness area of my life a little bit faster. So be open to people, talk to people. And it is so easy for people to say on the other side of it that, it's so easy to say once you're on the other side that, oh, it's so much easier, I should have done this, or people need to do this. It's so easy to say once you've done it, right? So just be yourself, talk to people, be open about yourself, and be open about how you're feeling, right? You're not going to get anything changed if you aren't open about it. And seek out friends and family that you know mean the world to you and you know are going to be there and have your best interest at heart. Talk to them, be a part of their life, and at the end of the day, be true to yourself and love yourself, because that's the most important thing.
That is so thoughtful, and thank you
Yeah, of
for
course.
coming on to the podcast. And yeah,
I'm glad